Welcome to the Empowerment Show, a weekly podcast call-in show that's here to enrich and educate the community of beautiful Northeast Pennsylvania and its surrounding areas. Hosted by Kendall Stevenson. Tonight we are joined by District 189 Representative Tarah Probst.
In Pike County. My name is Tarah Probst. We'd like to introduce you. Tarah.
Hello. So I'm the 189th district, which covers Eastern Monroe and Southern Pike County. And I'm honored to be here. It's been a while.
Today we like to talk to you about education and like to know how you feel about the educational system. We'd like to know any changes that's been done in the past 5 years and any changes that need to be changed or what's going to happen within the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to talking about it because truthfully, there's a lot going on now in Harrisburg. So I am a Democrat and it is 102 to 101 in the House of Representatives. So we have a one-person majority and we haven't had that in nearly 2 decades. So this was the first year that any of our bills actually saw the light of day to come out and get voted on. And we passed bills for education funding. We passed it for working families, for childcare tax credits, raising the minimum wage. The list goes on, and I have them. We passed 157 bills in 7 weeks. And we passed HB 300, which is the Equality Act. We passed the Crown Act. We passed safe staffing for hospitals and nurses, because these poor nurses, it's so hard. I mean, they have too many patients per nurse, they're overworked, people are leaving the field, and it really takes away the care that your loved ones would get. So everything that we have passed, and right to organize, by the way, protecting our unions, who built the middle class, everything we passed was for people, places, municipalities, working families. And that's what's important to me. It seems like these bills have been, awaiting some sort of a vote for nearly 2 decades, and they finally saw the light of day with 102. Now, 100 of them are still sitting in the Senate, which is Republican majority. So a lot of them will never see the light of day over there, unfortunately.
I understand you're from East Stroudsburg.
I am born and raised. I always like to say my grandmother was born and raised in East Stroudsburg, and my great grandmother. I'm a local for sure.
So what do you think changes need to be made within the educational system that would help our children in this environment?
Well, that could be a 10-part answer. So let's break it down. Changes. One of the things, I'm going to talk about a bill that we passed. We actually had 23 Republicans sign on to it. Not that House Bill's you'll remember this, but it's HB 1422, House Bill 1422. House Bill 1422 is cyber charter reform. In 1997, cyber charter schools came into play, privately owned. And basically it went through Governor, Tom Ridge, and they basically like the idea of privatizing education. So our public schools have been hemorrhaging money out to these privately owned, quote unquote, public schools since 1997, to the tune of, last year alone for Monroe County, $40 million. In our East Stroudsburg School District, I think it's nearly 15 million. In Stroudsburg School District, it was nearly 9 million. Now, this is our taxpayer dollars. And you hear people say all the time, well, cyber schools are public schools. Well, they're not. I mean, they are, because that's in 1997, the General Assembly labeled them as public schools. It was Republican governor, House, and Senate, right? Yeah. But they're not. They are privately owned. So your tax-paying dollars are going into the pockets of private companies. And the payouts are hand over fist more than the public school. So I just want to give you one example, and then I want to circle back to what we did. Okay. We're sitting here in East Stroudsburg, right? And if East Stroudsburg has a cyber school, so for whatever reason, parents want their kids to be in cyber school. Maybe they were bullied. Maybe they were injured. They have a broken leg or something. Whatever works for that family, they want their kid home learning for whatever reason. That is their absolute right and choice. So the East Stroudsburg Cyber School, for a taxpayer like you and me, it would cost us $2,500 to educate that child in East Stroudsburg.
Mhm.
But if they go to any other cyber school, such as Commonwealth Charter Academy, which you see the commercials
Right.
on ABC, NBC, that's your tax dollars paying for those commercials, by the way.
Wow.
Can you imagine if East Stroudsburg High School did a commercial on TV and it was your tax dollars? We'd be infuriated, right?
Mhm.
To the tune of 35 million, by the way, too, last year. So our school district has to pay out $22,500 in Stroudsburg and nearly $16,000 in East Stroudsburg to the cyber charter schools. If your kid has an IEP, special education, you could be gifted. You could need reading 30 minutes a week. On average, it costs our school districts between $12,000 and $15,000 to educate these kids, sometimes a little higher depending on what degree. But right now, East Stroudsburg is paying almost $41,000 for that kid, and Stroudsburg is paying $22,000 for that kid. So my point is that if you want to be called a public school, which the graduation rates are lower, you don't have right to know, you have no accountability. They don't have any of the same rules as traditional public schools. Then you should follow the same rules. So if you want to be a public school, you need to follow the same rules and get paid the same way. So, like I said, the overpayments that are being made, and this money is going to CEOs' pockets. It's going to tickets for baseball games. They were in the Macy's Day Parade with a float. That's your tax dollars. Everyone should be outraged. But let me tell you, it's the best kept secret since 1997.
I was going to say, you saying everyone should be outraged. They have to know first. So
Absolutely.
thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. And they don't, and it's nobody's fault but the people that are allowing this to continue to happen.
Right.
So if you look at, there's a PAC, a political action committee called the Commonwealth Foundation. Oh, they are the top payer to the Republican Party, and they are for school choice. So look at the campaign finance reports, see who's getting the money, and look at their votes. And that's what it boils down to. So anyway, part one, if our schools have not been funded fairly since 1992. In 1992, they enacted something that was called hold harmless. So in essence, they said that you're going to continue to get the funding that you're getting now.
Right.
You don't have to worry about that, right? Well, but no more and no less. What happened here in the Poconos? Boom, explosion. I mean, my oldest brother graduated in 1978 and I graduated in 1988 from East Stroudsburg. The difference in class sizes just from 78 to 1988 was massive. So, you know what it's like now. East Stroudsburg has two schools, East Stroudsburg South and North. So they're still getting the same money per kid. You know what I mean? Or per the formula for hold harmless as they did in 1992. Then you go out to the western part of the state where a lot of these rural schools, they have so many less kids, right? Kids get educated, they move out, they don't come back. They're getting the same amount. So they have property tax rebates in some part of the state because they've got hand over fist money. And here we are, the 99th percentile, the highest school taxes in the state because we're so underfunded. Now I want to say, I need to do like part 1A, okay? A couple of years ago, you heard some politicians talking about these great bills, HB 76 and SB 76, which is House bill and Senate bill. Eliminate school taxes. We're going to eliminate them. And of course, it sounds like rah, rah, yeah. Well, our Constitution says we cannot do that. We're supposed to fund education. And what we don't fund is by the local taxpayers.
Right.
But upwards to the amount of 50%, which, by the way, East Stroudsburg, we're not even getting close, okay, to that. So HBSB 76 essentially was raising the sales tax 1%, and that was going to quote unquote fund schools. Now, I am not a finance major, but you cannot fund schools on the ebbs and flows of the economy.
Right.
You can't do it. You can't prepare. You don't know what your budget's going to be one year to the next, right? And also, who does it hurt the most raising the sales tax?
Lower income.
Lower income, those who cannot afford it.
Mm-hmm.
So HB 76 and SB 76 was so bad that the Republican Senate didn't even pass it. Just so you know, 9 Republicans didn't even go for it. So then that went away, but that was the big thing, eliminate school taxes. And you hear people say, why am I paying for school when I don't have kids in school? Well, you know, somebody paid for you, right? I could sit there and say, why am I paying Social Security when I might not ever see it, right?
Right.
It's the common good. It's part of being in a civilized society. With good public education, you have better kids, better job choices, safer communities, and it makes your community better as a whole. So nobody ever complained about school taxes, though, until, think about it, 20 years ago, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
right? Things were pretty reasonable. I bet you when you moved here, your taxes were okay. And I bet you throughout the last 2 decades is when you're like, what is going on? So then the other side of the aisle will say, oh, it's teachers' unions, it's administrators. No, it's not. It's $9 million a year that's been hemorrhaged from our school district that we're all making up year after year after year over 2 decades.
To go to cyber school.
To go to these school choice programs. Exactly. I believe that parents should have a choice in schools. You must do what is best for you. You must do what is best for your children. And for some kids and for some parents, for whatever reason, 10% of the population doesn't like the public school system. So they send them to religious schools or they send them to private schools. And I know you need money for that. And for those that don't have the money and what other choices, okay, they have charter schools. My point is, if you're going to do that, you need to follow the same strict standards that traditional public schools must follow, must turn in reporting, must, fund balances have to be accountable. You can't have more than 10% of a fund balance, I think it is, or something like that. And the cyber charters have none of those regulations. So rule number 1, you need to fund education. You need to fund it fairly. Your zip code should not be the dictation of the education that you get. If everything was funded fairly, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in right now. The Supreme Court felt that way, and the Supreme Court came down with a decision against the GOP, 7 school districts against the GOP, and said, yeah, you need to change the formula. So now it's on us to do that, and there are groups of leadership working on that. So if we can get the school funding done fairly, if we can get the cyber charter reform just to be equal and have the same, regulations to the Department of State and everything else, then millions, and as a matter of fact, it's $456 million in Pennsylvania that goes back to the school districts. So from the words of one of the superintendents that I represent, if we can get this done, everything will level out. Like, for example, this year there was no tax increase. There could be rebates starting to happen. But you got to think about that. $9 million a year. Maybe it wasn't always $9 million, but over the last 10 years, it's $90 million of our money in just one school district. It was $40 million in Monroe County last year.
I'm sorry, you said rebates? It's rebates in...
Well, like giving money back on your school taxes. Okay. So...
Was that homestead? That's not homestead.
No. It's just when they say like a rebate, meaning like if your school taxes are just say $6,000 a year, oh, well, we got funded good this year. We have excess. Let's give the taxpayers back $500. Just there's an example. Okay. So that's first and foremost. Second, with education is that it's something that I'm embarrassed to talk about this because I had a great public school education, but there's a lot we didn't learn, right? I'm embarrassed to say I never even knew about Black Wall Street till it hit the news 3 years ago. And I'm embarrassed to say a lot of things that we never learned. So now, it's 2023, and school districts want to teach real history, what really happened. And you have a group of parents like the Moms for Liberty that say, that's not true. That's reverse racism, which makes me laugh because there is no such thing as reverse racism. I don't know where they came up with that one, but
Misconception.
it's a misconception, and we don't want to repeat. History repeats itself if you don't learn from it. Look at Germany and look at World War II, and 6 million Jewish people died. You're not even allowed to have a Nazi flag in Germany. It's illegal. In school, you are taught what your people did to the Jewish people, and you have national remorse. They want you to never repeat that again. And the United States, we're a wonderful country. We're a great country, but boy, we made mistakes. And I'm not saying everybody, but we made mistakes. And we have, I don't think the Confederate flag should even be allowed. When I see that, people say, well, it's part of our history. Yeah, they tried to throw our government away.
Actually, the flag that you see with the cross, that came in around 1965 from the Ku Klux Klan. And James Baldwin spoke about that.
Right, but they tried to say it's the Confederate flag, right? Who tried to overtake our government.
That was a battle flag.
Yep. Anyway, no matter what, that flag represents nothing but hatred and losers, by the way. They lost that war, right? So why are you so proud of that history? Why aren't you proud of other things that we did to try to overcome, slavery and the treating people as property?
Right.
And
well, that's white supremacists. So those are the kids. Those are not just Americans. Those are white supremacists.
Listen, I'm
an American. You're an American. Those are more than American. They are white supremacists.
We all came into the world the same way, didn't we?
Same way.
And exactly.
That's right.
So anyway, my point is that now teachers want to teach this, and they really want to. And it's like the poor teacher is getting parents leaving nasty voicemails, on their answering machines. It's like, I'm trying to think of a word.
Horrendous.
It's not it's not, you're not educating your kids by sheltering them and not teaching them things that have really gone on in life. And I feel like groups like the Moms for Liberty, or for instance, Governor DeSantis in Florida changing the Rosa Parks story in the books. Are you kidding me? I feel like they just want to erase history, and they want to be a white dominant force. And
it's not so much they want to erase history. What they want to do is whitewash it.
They want to change it.
Yeah. They want to make it look like if America didn't do anything wrong, and whatever America did actually helped the slaves. It gave them these special skills that they never had.
It's ridiculous, and let's just call it for what it is. So I'm glad to say that in Stroudsburg, in their AP classes, they're teaching these types of courses, and I think it should be even more, but it's a start. And they have DEI committees, and I think we all can grow. Education aside, we're a product of our environment growing up, and when you grow, when you go on, to college, or you get into the workforce or whatever, your mind expands. You can empathize, you can try to envision walking in other people's shoes more than you do when you're a child.
Right.
So I think of things that even the way I thought about things, about many things. And you think about what you saw on TV in the 1970s, who was always the bad guy? Who was always the drug dealer, right? Constantly people of color, right? So I watched this documentary, and it showed a young black male with his hood on, and he was going around the side of the house looking in the window. And because of my age and what I grew up to in movies and everything else, what's the first thing you think? Oh, he's trying to break in.
Right.
The second screen shot was a woman standing on the corner with a baby bump and holding a little baby's, another child's arm on the corner. What do you think of if you're growing up in the 70s, right? Oh, she,
Teenage
there's no dad, which
pregnancy.
by the way, I never met my father. So, but these are the things that you think about, right?
Mhm.
And the third part of it was there was a young black male going into a convenient mart. And when you walked in, he put his hood up. And again, only because of what you see in media and things like that. What do you think? Oh, he's there to steal something, right?
Right.
Well, it was called expand the screen. So they took all the screens and they slid them over. And the first scenario was a young man that was surprising his grandmother on her birthday. So he
Oh,
was
wow.
hiding, knocked on the door, and she was so happy he opened the door, right? The second one, the woman standing there with the children, her husband pulls up, gets out of the car and helps her into the car and gets back in the car. And the third one, when the kid walked in, the guy behind the counter threw something at him and he caught it. He's like, got it, like they're
Right.
friends.
Right.
And that is normal. That is society, right?
Mhm.
But because of years and decades and things like that, how people were raised, you go to the worst case scenario. So my goal for the future for my son, there is no worst case scenarios. Everybody's a person. Everybody has a family.
Mhm.
Everybody has challenges. Everybody has obstacles. And like I told my son, I'm like, Hunter, I never met my dad ever. My mom raised 4 of us with an 11th grade education, and I tell him, like, I
Mhm.
am no different than anybody else, but I can tell you this much. I was a white girl and I had more opportunities.
Right.
And there was black women and black men that were smarter than me that I probably got the job over because I was
Right.
I'm not naive to recognize that.
Mhm.
What I want to happen in the future is to never even have that be the issue.
Mhm.
And the best that I can do is raise my son to know these things and to
Yeah.
understand.
Mhm.
And I do, like, he has his permit now and we talk about it. I'm like, think about, your friend, I'm not going to use names. Think about your friend so-and-so who also is driving now. Think about that. If he ever got pulled over by the cops, just based on what you see on the media, it's a whole different scenario than you getting pulled over by the cops.
Mhm.
Is that fair?
Mhm.
Absolutely not.
Right.
I said, so these are the things we could do to change it. So anyway, in the schools, I really do believe that they are forming DEI committees. They are doing more of diversity, inclusion, equity. And I do believe that that's going to help the public school system. Definitely. My school district's very diverse and I love it. My district is very diverse with including 19% Spanish speaking. So how do we help education? We do that and we start languages early. We got to start languages early on. Strasbourg just started an initiative. They want to start in 2nd grade.
Mhm.
So anyway, I told you I could keep talking
No,
forever.
it's all good.
No,
It's all
you're good.
I got a list of
Based
questions.
on
and
what you're saying, we're trying to figure out what question follows
because
after
read
that
some
one.
questions. In our list, we have a list of questions that we
Okay.
wanted to ask you. And as we're going through the conversation, you're kind of already answering the questions.
Questions, yeah.
So we got to kind of keep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
going back
Okay.
and
You're
forth to see
good,
what
you're
the
good.
next question was. Well, let me
You're
ask
like,
you.
I'm never having her back on.
Well, let me ask you this. I love what you do. We all love what you do. We know that you're a friend of Genesis Radio.
Mhm.
And if someone, a younger person, would want to do what you want to do, how would they get there? How would they do what you want to do? What
So
you're doing?
yeah, no, this is a really great question because again, you know how I said you age and you grow and if you don't change, you'll die. You have to expand your mind. You have to see other sides. You have to say never. If you would have asked me 20 years ago if I was going to be a state representative, I would have said, you're insane. Actually, I made more money 20 years ago than I make being a state representative.
Right.
You're insane. No way. Always political, always.
Mhm.
And raised by a fierce Democratic household with 3, my grandmother, my aunt, and my mom. I mean,
Mhm.
like, I think I came out of the womb and was like smacked on the butt, but it took education. It took a school board, a Tea Party school board that closed 2 elementary schools that my son was attending in Strasbourg. And I thought, well, got to be reasonable. People elected them, right?
Right.
So a group of moms went in with facts and figures and how small community schools turn out better readers, better math, better everything, right? Socialization, blah, 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 blah. They didn't care. They had an agenda to close schools and to basically try to privatize education because the more that they can close and consolidate and make schools worse, the more school choice was going to have to,
Oh, okay.
right?
Be a factor. Mhm.
This is the Tea Party. Basically, they were mini of the MAGA. You know, it's like the
Right.
beginning. These guys, MAGA took it over. So, so I was so fired up, and my friend Erica McCabe and I organized, and we got parents starting to go to school board meetings.
Oh, okay.
And then in 2015, like they closed schools day one on the job. The primary came in 2015. We wiped the whole entire school board out and got people in there that care about education, not criminalizing education or trying to get rid of it. So because we had such an uptick in voters, because we organized, we knocked on doors, you see those stories all the time, right? Let me tell you, it works. The Democratic Party came to me because the mayor had died in office and said, you should run for mayor. You guys just had a phenomenal turnout in 2015 for a school board. So I was like, all right. So I did, ran for mayor, and I put my heart and soul in that and saw really great changes. It's never me alone. You can't do anything without help. And I had the help of this council. We flipped the council and we did great things in Stroudsburg. And then when you're in that position and you learn about local government, county government, and I do have a law degree, so I understood a lot of, you have to be able to read a statute. You have to be able to read an ordinance. And I did have an advantage with that. But that is what really motivated me. Like, why isn't this being done? And there's nothing worse than someone saying, well, we just don't do things that way. Well, that's, you better change it,
Right.
And it's never, we can't, it's, well, we can, but how are we going to do it? And that type of attitude. So that's what kind of put me going up higher and higher, because I also saw things that were happening then on the state side of it, where funding for schools, the propaganda of HB 76, and it was infuriating. And these people kept getting reelected. That was called gerrymandering. However, they kept getting reelected, and but they're so nice. They showed up at my son's Eagle Scout. They're so nice. They were at my mom's 100th birthday. Yeah, they can smile and be nice, but look at their votes.
Right.
You are getting crucified. So anyway, that's what made me move on. And they say that you can change your career on average of 7 times as an adult. And I truly do believe that now at 52. Absolutely. And if you do what you love, I swear to God, it's like, it's a true saying. It's really not work. You really love it.
Right.
I know that feeling.
Yep. So
let me ask you, in East Stroudsburg and in the Stroudsburg district, in your district,
Kendall, I'm sorry. There you said, how do young people get involved? Young people get involved. I told you my story. Something's going to trigger somebody.
Right.
They're going to get mad about it. They're going to want to organize and help. And then next thing you know, they're going to say, we did it. I want to move forward in this.
Right.
So that was my answer.
Right. What advice would you give them?
My advice to give them is, depending on what cause they want to fight for, Google it, find out if there's organizations that, well, let's just say you're for the, the rights of animals. I'm just giving an example out there that could be neutral. You could be Republican, you could be Democrat, and you could have animal rights.
Right.
Well, the first thing you want to do is probably look up, the SPCA, the Humane Society, all those organizations, get involved. And then you're going to say, why are we funded so low? Who is anybody doing grants? And then next thing you know, you're going to look into that. And then next thing you know, you're just going to keep getting more and more and deeper involved, and something is going to click with you that's what you love to do.
You any questions, Coach?
Yes. Going back to the school funding.
Yes.
You had a thought of just like, how do you make that funding equal across the board? I live up in Tobyhanna, but also coming from New York, it's the same exact principle I can say for New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. What are some of the factors that can make something equally across the board as far as school funding?
Well, get rid of hold harmless, which is that 1992 law. That's when things started really going bad, because as we grew, we weren't getting funded. So there was a point where, schools were funded 50% by the state, a little bit by the federal government, and the property owners paid the rest. Right now, I think Stroudsburg was at 15.3% from the state. That's it. Right. So, so what they're doing though to fix this is that they do have a bipartisan committee right now that is going from school district to school district. What is the average cost for you to fund this child? You know, look at other states that do it well. You know, money should follow a kid, not this is what you're getting and no more. You know, it should
Mhm.
follow the population of the student body. And if you did that, you would have more money to be able to have more programs for students and not have to take away languages and art classes and things like that. So I feel that that's how it should be funded per student.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that doesn't mean that's what's going to happen.
Right.
But I think that that would be a fair funding situation.
And I have another question. I work for the Environmental Protection Agency. We don't believe in waste. So like, even not so much for myself, but when I had kids, the school lunch program, they allocate a lunch or breakfast for each child. But if that child can't pay, that food goes in the garbage. Can somebody please make it make sense for me?
Please, right? And you know, it's awful. When we were in school, I don't know how it was for you. It's different now.
We're the same age.
Okay, so we had a tray. We
Mhm.
went down. They put on what they put on, and then you paid at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to put money in an account. Everything's on a number.
Oh yeah, up here.
Right.
Yes. Mhm.
It's completely different. You have choices.
Yes. Mhm.
The only choice that we had if we didn't want the main course was a peanut butter and jelly. Like
Yeah.
if you didn't want the beef stew, it was peanut butter and jelly.
Mhm.
Now they've got like, you know, lots of options. But Josh Shapiro enacted free breakfast for Universal,
Okay.
which is wonderful. However, a lot of the kids they get off the bus and they got to go right to homeroom. They only
Mhm.
have time. My son eats lunch at like 10 o'clock in the morning because they start at 7:15.
Right.
So he's not, you know, I'm just
Thinking
saying,
about
right?
breakfast, right?
I always like the idea of free lunch. You know, I like free universal lunch, truthfully.
Mhm.
And breakfast, I think should all be. But if I had to make that choice, I think that it'd be a more nutritious meal for lunch. I
Mhm.
think kids then could be able to get through their day longer. I mean, hey, there are some kids that's the only meals they eat.
That is true.
So Stroudsburg is 62% free and reduced lunch.
Okay.
Okay, so they do have these programs for families that earn under a certain amount, and they do that. Now there are some families that just don't pay it, but the kids don't go without food in Stroudsburg. They still eat. Unfortunately, though, it's like just a sandwich or something, which I think is shaming the kid,
Mhm.
and they should not do that because it's not their fault, right?
Right.
So my answer to you is we have the money for universal lunch.
I believe
We
we
have
do.
$5 billion in our coffer, right?
Mhm.
If schools get funded fairly, this is maybe a program that you could allocate towards it.
Yes.
I don't think any child should ever go hungry.
Mhm.
And I think that breakfast and lunch should be. And if there's anyone out there that says, I'm not paying for somebody else's kid to eat, there's something mentally wrong with them. Because if you're going to be feeling really great knowing that a kid's hungry,
Mhm.
then there's something not right in the head, you know?
Mhm.
So
They say they're paying anyway for something else. So why not give that money towards a program for the kids to eat? Guess what? If their nutrition is great, then they don't go off and do other mischievous things because they're hungry.
you know that good food, good nutrition
Mhm.
makes for a better brain to study, to work hard, to
Exactly.
comprehend,
Absolutely.
which makes for a high school graduate, which
Mhm.
then leads on to either trades, military, or college, and a part of our workforce. And we need a workforce. You know that
Yes.
we are short on a workforce here. We have the lowest unemployment in the history, right? Well, not in the history. I think since 1970 something, right? Lowest unemployment right now.
Mhm.
So 3.4%, I think. And we still don't have enough workers.
Right.
So why wouldn't you want a kid to really enjoy learning? I know when I'm hungry, I can't think straight. I get hangry.
Right.
You know? So why wouldn't you want to do that for kids and just give them that one step up? Because those kids are going to be in your community.
Yep.
And you want your community to be healthy and safe. So I don't
Exactly.
get it. And you can
Exactly.
call me a bleeding heart liberal. I don't care what you call me when I say that. To me, that should be bipartisan. You
Mhm.
should care about all those kids.
All those kids.
Yeah.
So I know people always asking me questions, right? So what questions are you tired of hearing that people ask you? And what questions would you like to hear the correct answer to, a real answer?
You know, we kind of spoke about this, which is funny.
Mm-hmm.
I am never tired of getting questions, and I always tell the truth. And this way, half of the time, I never even come with paper. You're never going to see me look at a note, because if you tell the truth, you don't have to worry
Think
about
it.
oh God, I got to cover a lie. What did I say here? What did I say there? I never do an interview with paperwork, because I don't get sick of questions, because if you ask me, I'm just going to tell you the truth, whether people like it or not. I am an open book. So I don't get sick of any questions. The only thing I could say that I might get sick of is when someone says something to the effect of, why are the Democrats, all they do is spend, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you don't even know what you're talking
It's
about.
so the reverse.
You don't even know. Not just that, if you invest, which don't wealthy people invest, right?
Mm-hmm.
How come they're allowed to invest and get all the tax breaks? But the minute we want to invest in people,
Mm-hmm.
for every dollar invested in a child, you get a $17 return. That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't call it spend, I call it invest.
Right.
And yeah, it might cost some now, but believe me, give it 5, 6, 7 years, the return is going to be worth every single penny you invested. So that always bothers me. All the Democrats want to do is spend. No, we want to invest in a future.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Look at all the countries, and look at even the state. When we invested in our country, whether it's, under FDR, right? After the war, put everybody to work on national programs, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were all national jobs for the United States. What do they always say? Oh, that was the best time in our country. People were able to buy homes and get ahead and this and that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we invested.
It's FDR, right?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
No, we invested in our workforce, right?
Right.
We invested. We put people to work. We were in the Great Depression. You had people like, I think it was it Hoover, that when Florida got hit with a massive hurricane, and he's like, oh well, let the rich people take care of it. Like, you have to invest in your country. You have to invest in its people.
Right.
And California, for example, and you can say what you want about California. They're having some issues right now in San Francisco, no doubt. But that state on its own is the 5th best economy in the world. They invest in education. They invest in education, and state schools are free. My husband graduated from San Diego State, and all he had to do was buy his books, and then they capped it at $50.
Wow.
I mean, so you invest in people, you invest in education of some sort, in some way or another, you're going to have the 5th best economy in the world as the state of California.
So, what is the number one way we can make a difference, a substantial difference?
What do you mean?
I mean, it's like
Within education, in the education system,
mhm.
what changes do you think that would really make a really substantial difference?
Stop giving our public funds to private entities, period. So, and I mean that.
Mhm.
I mean that. Nearly $2 billion last year went to private companies for education of our tax-paying dollars.
So how?
And now what that does is it
Mhm.
funds your schools better.
Mm-hmm.
It funds your pockets better, so
Mhm.
you have a better life,
Mm-hmm.
and you have more food on the table. You're better for the economy and your local economy. And I'm telling you, that is one major factor of school funding that needs to be reformed, period.
So as a common person, how would we be able to, I guess you say, speak up for ourselves?
At the voting box,
Okay.
at the ballot, at the
Okay.
ballot. Right now, this bill,
Mm-hmm.
along with the Crown Act, right? You know what the Crown Act is, obviously.
I don't know. They may not.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Crown Act is people who are Black and brown that have ethnic hair can wear it how they want and not be fired for a job. Still happens today.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Marriott
Mhm.
makes you do certain things with your hair. So
Mhm.
it's basically you to be able to wear your natural God-given hair the way you want without being discriminated by. It happens all the time. It's not fair. And we passed it. And it was Speaker of the House, Joanna McClinton, and House of Representatives, Latasha Mays out of Pittsburgh. And the stories growing up, how they had to do their hair for jobs and how it was acceptable in the schools. It's your natural God-given hair. You should be able to wear your natural God-given hair the way you want to wear it. That was bipartisan. And I was so
Mhm.
happy about that because some of the most conservative House of Representatives voted for the Crown Act. That really like took me back. I was really happy about that.
Mhm.
So you got to look at the Senate now and how they're voting. And they're not.
Mhm.
They're not going to pass that. And you know what? If they do, throw egg at my face next time I'm on here, right? They're not even going to look at it.
Mhm.
Kind of like that Child Credit Care Act. What's going on with that?
Not even going to look at it.
Ah,
So, working families now,
bipartisan, right?
yeah. So we need people in the workforce, and then you criticize, oh, look at her staying at home. She just wants to sit at home with her kids and not work. No, the daycare costs more an hour than the job she has. You
Mhm.
are already at negative before you get up in the morning, right?
Exactly.
And how come, like my one friend who's from Germany, in Germany, she had a baby. They want you to stay home with that baby. They pay you to stay home for that baby. That is nurturing. That is taking care of the baby. That is the hardest job and nobody wants it, right? It's a
Mhm.
hard job. How come they don't call it welfare? They embrace it. They say that is awesome.
Mhm.
And here we are, oh, the people that don't want to work. I would listen, I couldn't wait to get back to work after I had my kid. I mean, I love my son, but I could never be a stay-at-home mom. I was like thankful that I had family to help me, right?
Mhm.
But that is a big deal because the cost of daycare and even like the preschool. I mean, fortunately, we have a really great Monroe County Head Start here for families under a certain income. But then you have middle class families that can't afford the $2,000 a month for their kid. I mean, this is what it
Right.
costs.
Mhm.
So it's like we're not a civilized country. It's like we want people. There's a side that wants to rise people up and help them because if you help them, they're going to do great things. And I feel like there's a side that doesn't want anybody else to get ahead except their family or except their status. And it disgusts me because although I'm a white girl and I know I had that privilege, I moved 11 times in my first 16 years of life.
Wow.
Lackawanna Avenue twice, Spring Street, North Cortland twice. I mean, you name it. I've lived in the borough of East Stroudsburg because my mom couldn't afford the rent. And I could tell you she worked her butt off, but thank God we had my grandmother and my aunt. So she didn't have to pay for those things. Because if she did, I really don't know where we would all be today. I don't. My whole life would be completely changed.
So let me ask you this real quick. If people want to know some of this information, where can they go look at it?
Sure.
I'm talking about like for education or legislation,
Mhm.
because a lot of people, I don't know if they know that they can actually vote for legislators and who's going to be in there.
Absolutely, they can, and we need them to. And it's local elections, state elections, they're so important because they're like your everyday life, right? All elections are important, believe me. So they can do multiple things now with this thing, right? We all have a smartphone,
Mhm.
and there's, my kid can do it so much better than me. But if you want to know, just say the platforms, hey, what's going on? What bills? First of all, let me just say this: civics. We need to make sure we continue to teach civics. People need to know that there's 3 branches of government, and they need to know that, like when they say, like, oh, Joe Biden, he's not doing this. It's like Joe Biden's hands are tied until the House and the Senate get their act together. Like, people don't even understand these things. Like, it's Joe Biden's fault they say that the price of gas. Like, okay, gas is a world what the market dictates gas. Although
Excellent.
Pennsylvania has one of the highest gas taxes in the country, though. Of course, that was done by a Republican Senate and House,
Mhm.
not the Democrats. But anyway, you can Google those things. Like if you say, I want to know what they're working on in Harrisburg right now, you could go to House of Representatives, Pennsylvania. It'll give you links to every one of your representatives, where they're at, what bills are being worked on, what was put out, what's going to be introduced. It's in committee, it's coming out of committee, and it's got to be voted on twice. You can learn the rules of how it works,
Mhm.
and then it's really fun to follow, because then you can track it and you can see. Then you can go on and see how people vote. If you want to know more about the charter cyber school and how it's hemorrhaging us, just Google it. I mean, it'll come right up. There's like 9 million articles on it. But also, call your state representative, call your school district, and say, hey, I heard this. How much did we spend? Oh, it's a right to know. You can fill it out online. We'll email you the answer. You have to do a right to know because it's a sunshine law. Anything you want to know like that, the information is 100% public. So,
Coco, can we put that on the site? Can we put the information?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We're,
So, I mean, the exact web pages that they can go to and where they can look to see to find this information?
oh,
Because
Yeah.
the information is important, right? It's
Yes.
important,
yeah,
right?
definitely.
Okay, so.
Definitely.
mhm.
I mean, we use something that's called like legistate.pa,
Mhm.
Okay.
but before I leave here, when the show is over, I will make sure that I give you some websites.
Okay.
Okay, great, because we like to put that up on the board,
Okay.
Mhm.
okay? Because everybody can do something. If it's nothing but to pick up the phone and you talk to your legislator or you call and complain to one of your politicians, but everybody can do something.
Right. And we all have Facebook pages. We all have weekly newsletters that go out, email. Now mine's in English and Spanish. You have an option. But if you sign up for the newsletter, it lets you know what's going on in Harrisburg weekly.
Mhm.
And also, I do a newsletter, but nice when you said, what question you'd like people to ask? Remember you said,
Mhm.
what are you sick of it? What would you like them to ask? I would like them to ask me point blank, how do you plan to work with the other side in such a gridlock in today's society? And I don't get that question much.
Mhm.
Or how would you?
It's what I'm doing now. I have friends on the other side, and listen, there's some jerks over there that gonna get it, if you know what I mean, because they just happen where they don't want you to be educated. They don't,
Mhm.
right? But I have so many friends on the other side that are wonderful, great people. We probably see eye to eye on 7 out of 10 issues. Those 3 that we don't are usually important issues to me. But we can laugh about that. And I can't take how they feel like they don't know what they're talking about, because they feel as strongly in their views as I'm sitting here telling you about my views today.
Right.
And you've got to respect that. I might not like it. Some are just downright horrible, though. I'm not going to lie. They just have no business even being working for the people, because they are working for like 3 people. It's insane. But for the most part, the other side of the aisle, there's some really wonderful people there, and I get along great with them. We don't vote the same, and many times they say, I agree with you, but I can't vote that way. They'll destroy me if they see I voted on that, which is sad. You should never, I will never vote for something that I don't believe in. And I can rest my head at night because I'll go out. I don't need the money for this job. Like I said, 20 years ago, I was making more than I make now.
Right.
I don't need it. I'm doing this because I want to see a change. And we haven't had change in so long. And I feel like that 1% majority we have already seen significant change.
During the pandemic, we got an opportunity to see what technology, I'm just kind of reeling you back to education.
Yeah.
So during the pandemic, we got an opportunity to see how technology, what role do they play?
Right.
And I just want to ask you, in the future, what do you think technology and what role are they going to play with like student-teacher relationship, or even their social status amongst outside of that cyber world?
You're asking the wrong person because I absolutely hate it.
Mhm.
I think that going to school, having responsibility to wake up in the morning, to go be social, be in classes with kids that don't look like you, that have a different religion than you, that eat different food than you do, and getting to know them on a personal level and with the diversity.
Mhm.
I think that socially you're just going to really, really fly, as you get out of school and grow. And you know, I I I don't mind when there is a snow day. Now I like traditional snow days too, but now you can go online and you can still have a school day, right? I
Right.
just think that makes the school year easier. I really
Mhm.
do. But I don't think a kid sitting home on a computer by themselves for the school year is going to be good for them as they grow and as an adult. I just don't. Doesn't. I'm not a psychiatrist though. I am not I have no degree to
Mhm.
say that, but I can tell you this, that how our part of growing up is learning to cope, is learning to deal with things, is learning to be hurt, is learning to be sad, is learning to be happy.
Right.
And I was picked on, and those are the things that make your character and you stronger.
Mhm.
And I think that if you are putting your kid in that bubble, they may turn out the best kid in the world and the most successful adult in the world. They may, and I hope they do. But it's they're gonna have something missing, and I don't know what to put my finger on it and say it, but something's going to go missing, and I don't know what that
Like
is.
say even just socializing with others.
Just
You don't know how if you don't learn it from young, how to socialize, how to play,
Yeah.
get along. As you grow up, you either stay in that bubble or you feel.
It's the only
Could
time
be
they're not in this, right? Because they're in school.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to be home on this computer, and when you're done, you're going to be on your phone. It's scary. These things scare me probably more than anything, though. I got to be honest with you. But anyway,
Just to play the devil's advocate, okay? And during my time, we played with the little G.I. Joe toys.
Mhm.
Remember them?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
Okay. In today's time, they're not playing. This is what they do. This is technology. This is what they even socialize with this. Jesus Christ, have you ever seen these kids text to each other? I'm sorry.
That's
Have you ever
okay.
seen them? I mean,
Yeah.
I can't text like that. So this is the way that the children today, of today's world, are socializing and communicating with one another.
Can I say something? Because I was one of those people too, right? They probably want to call me boomer, even though I'm not. I'm a Gen Xer. I was saying things like that. And then I remember like when the Beatles came out and made a comment like rock and roll and Elvis Presley and Little Richard and all the greats. This is going to kill our teenagers. It's going to kill our society. Nothing's going to be the same. Prior to that, remember booze and then prohibition. This is going to kill our society. This is it. My mom would have a doll to play with. They
Mhm.
were literally by Dansbury Park playing in the creek. There wasn't
Mhm.
even a pool. And 4 and 5 years old by themselves, right? Okay, if that wasn't dangerous, I don't know what is, but this is how it was back in the 1940s, right? So think about your grandparents and what they had and what we had, and I had the handheld games and I had Atari, and I remember being up till 2 a.m. in 6th grade, like playing Atari, right?
Mhm.
My mom never said those games are going to ruin your mind.
Mhm.
It's every generation. This is how it is for this new generation. This is how they communicate. This is how they watch TV. This is what they do. But what scares me is there's so much information on it,
Oh, yes.
right?
Mhm.
It could also make a dumb society because I find myself, if I don't know the answer and I Google it, I don't necessarily retain that answer. I just get my instant answer and I move on, right?
Right.
But so I can't say what it's going to be like or what kids are going to be like. They are just another generation of what every single generation has heard. I mean, remember, in the 60s and like they say, Woodstock, if you remember it, you weren't really there, right? And and you were in Vietnam, I mean, so think about what kids were doing, young kids in the early 70s, late 60s.
Mhm.
They thought, this is it. These hippies are going to ruin everything, right? I mean,
Like me
right, what do we
growing
say?
up in the 70s, I remember mom saying, you can't go outside because it's not safe. Compared to now,
Yeah.
It was safe back then.
Well, do you want to know the funny thing? I read an article that in New York City, I think they used like the 1976 or 7.
Mhm.
It actually was safer than it is today.
Oh,
And it's funny, people don't think that, but now we can go on Megan's List. We could see everything, right? Like,
Right.
oh my God, we
Mhm.
didn't know
Right.
back then.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, it was actually, more. Or it was more safe then
Mhm.
than it is now. But now we know.
Right.
Oh, you can't go down that street. Chester the molester lives there. Just giving
Right.
an example.
Mhm.
So it's crazy.
Right.
Who knows? Like there was more predators back then, than
Right.
there is now.
Probably
Actually,
was more common sense.
yeah.
I mean, people had to rely on that more than to technology.
And neighbors looked out for you too. They really
Yeah,
do. I
that's
still
true,
look out
too.
for my neighbors, though.
Right.
We still look out for one another where I live.
We try to bring that unity in this community. So
Yeah.
that's what we're all about.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love it here.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. It's different. And one of the comments you made earlier, I was that parent that didn't teach my kids about racism
Mhm.
coming from New York, about anything. But when they got up here and they got on the bus, when my son, I'm going to say it, when my son came home and said, Mom, what's the N-word? I was like, what are you talking about? Because he had never heard that. And when we came up here, that's when high school started at the 8th grade.
Okay.
And I asked him, where did he hear it from? And he said, one of the kids in school. I didn't even know how to respond.
Yeah.
I knew what it was. I mean,
Right.
I'd never experienced it until I actually started working out in the corporate world.
Right.
And even the other comment about how you wear your hair, I didn't get a job because of that reason. And the person who didn't hire me, we're still good friends, and I think she's awesome. But when she told me I didn't get the job because of the way I wore my hair, and you can't wear your hair like that, I'm like, oh, thank you for the Crown Act. Maybe that'll help somebody now. But the things that happened in the past, I was affected by it, and so was my son. So, how do parents address that? And I'm not a confrontational person. I didn't know what to say to my son. I said, sometimes, son, silence.
Ignorance.
Yes, I said it. I told him it was ignorant. I said, but sometimes silence is the best answer. But I don't think that was the best answer, but that was the best answer for me as a parent then.
Yeah, and that's so hurtful. And it's just, look, if someone's saying that and calling you that, they're hurting inside because they're obviously not happy inside.
Thank you for watching.
They're bullied.
Please like this video and subscribe to our channel.
And it's true, right? And you just, anyone that's that ignorant, you're better than me. Who said it? I'm sorry that happened, but I'm here to say that I was focused on today. I know that it does. And, I do have some friends that are from other It's everywhere. Does not mean it's right. It's everywhere. But the more diverse your community is, I think the less and less it would happen. And I can really say that I'm in a very diverse community, and I have friends of all shapes, sizes, colors, religions, and it's the best. And, this is going to sound really childish, but I think it really, I watched a documentary on Fats Domino, right? And I just love him so much. And my mom listened growing up, like we listened to him a lot, and he really didn't listen to voices. But anyway, there was segregation in the South, and in the place, is we were doing a different story. Once he started playing music, black people, white people dancing together, having a great time. He didn't care. He was offended, separate ways, right? So when I was growing up in Coconut, is. And when I was his age, it was like pizza, pasta, red meat, potato, vegetable.
Mhm.
And so he loves it because of all the different ethnicities that he's friends with, like, for instance, empanadas, right? I didn't have an empanada until I was probably 27 years old.
Mhm. He can relate to the
So, and
diversity.
it sounds really dumb, but it's like, oh my God, Mom, can we get Indian food tonight? Mom, can we get Dominican food tonight? And honestly, there is no, it sounds really dumb, but it puts like a love. If you love that food, you love that culture,
Yeah.
you love the people who's doing it for you, right?
Mhm.
So I think it might sound really childish, but I'm telling you, I think there's really something to a diverse community when it comes to food and music and art and everything. And,
Yes.
and it really does help your children, especially, and adults
Mhm.
grow.
Mhm. That's true too. Yeah. Yeah. So you have another question?
I have plenty more questions for this young lady. I'm
I
just
talk too
trying
much,
to get.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
No.
not that. It's that I had a list of questions, and you kind of like answered them all. I didn't get much of a chance to ask him, but we love having you here on the show as usual, and we're hoping that you come on again.
Yeah, I would love to.
We're here about the unity in the community, and we're here to empower the community with information because we believe that knowledge is power.
Yeah, it is.
Right? So that's what we're trying to express here. Right?
Yep.
So is there something that you like to say? You got a platform, you got an audience. Is there something you'd like to express? Something that's going on now that maybe we can start to address?
Well, there's so much going on right now, but I think if we really look at what you're talking about, unity in the community and just knowing what's going on, there's so many people out there that don't vote, whether you vote for me or you vote for my polar opposite opponent. Okay, I don't care. You may be listening to this saying, I don't like her. Well, then go out and vote for the other person, but find out what they're about. My point is when I hear people say like, I'm not even registered or I'm not voting, it doesn't matter. My vote doesn't count. Number one, don't complain if you don't vote. You have no right to complain.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you didn't take a stance on how you feel about things, I don't ever want to hear a complaint. And that really bothers me when people don't vote. Number two, it's easy to vote. And if you don't know how, all you have to do is either you can register to vote if you're getting your 18th birthday and your driver's license. You can go to the DMV and do it. You can go into voter registration in Monroe County and do it. Google, how do I sign up to vote? You can do it online.
Mm-hmm.
You can register online. And, well, I don't know what party. I don't know. I don't want to be a party. There's a two-party system, blah, blah, blah. You know what? It is a two-party system right now. There's plenty of independents out there, and they're important, and I do feel bad that they don't have the option to vote in a primary.
Right.
It is what it is right now in Pennsylvania, but in a general, they can vote for whoever they want. But a lot of my independent friends either you can switch for the primary and switch right back. It's all done online.
Right.
So you can have your voice heard in a primary, but there's no excuse that you cannot vote.
Right.
There's none. And, well, I don't know what they're all about. Well, what's important to you? Well, what's important to me is I don't make enough money. I work 40 hours a week and I can't feed my family. Yeah, you should never work 40 hours a week and not be able to feed your family. That should be never even an option for you.
Right.
So, okay, you want to see that people have living wages and that they can, right? That's a Democratic Party. I mean, we're at $7.25 an hour in Pennsylvania. We just did 15. So, it's sitting in the Senate, and really people are paying more now because they're desperate for workers, but the workers need to take their rights back. We do deserve more. Nobody should be working 40 hours a week and have to be on assistance. Nobody. It's you should have livable wages so that you can feed your family, pay your rent. I mean, maybe you're not going to have a fancy car, maybe you're not going to take a big vacation, but your necessities to be able to live, you should be able to have this, right? So maybe that's what's important to you. Well, then you want to go ahead and Google, let me see what my Democratic state rep stands for. Let me see what my Republican state rep stands for. Let me see how I feel about this. It's, these kids are on the phone all the time, and adults, they can do their research, and everything else. They could take 10 minutes out and research that. Or the people with the guns, oh, you're going to take away my right to a gun. I have a gun. I own a gun. My son's name is Hunter. I do not want to take away your right to guns. But what I want to do is make sure that you don't have a reason that you shouldn't have that gun.
Right.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with a universal background check, which a lot of places do. I mean, gun dealers do that, but the gun show loopholes don't. So that is the area of concern for me. So, and really, even my Republican friends, responsible gun owners, feel the same way. If that's important to you, look, well, how does she feel about that? Well, I'm never voting for her because of that. Okay, how do you feel about a woman's right to their body? Now, I am from women that my Aunt Barb was like the bra burner, okay? She was there. And let me tell you, nobody should have a personal right over anybody's body except to their own.
Right.
And you take away a right to a woman's body, you strip her down to nothing. Because without that right to your own body, you've got nothing. And and it's a choice. So just because you don't want to do it, then don't.
Right.
You don't walk in a person's shoes. You don't know their life. So that whole Roe v. Wade, if that doesn't fire up young women and men, right? I mean, if you don't vote for Democrats, we're the only ones fighting for that right now. The Republicans are banning it in other states. They're banning it. The Republican Supreme Court just overturned it. First time in 267 years, we had a right taken away. And if that doesn't make you mad and make you want to go out and vote and make you want to vote, I'm a Democrat, and I'm not saying we're perfect. We are not perfect. But my God, we do not. We want to help people, places, things, and protect a right to your body, to be able to protect our public schools, protect our kids.
Right.
So
Read a book.
Not have
right to read a
it
book.
banned.
And that's funny that they'll ban a book, but they don't ban a gun, because the book it'll hurt the kids.
Knowledge,
It hurts the children.
Yeah, gun just kills you.
See, but the gun, it's okay.
But so listen, there's two things, and I know. Did you know that sign? And I'm respectful to the Marines, but the MAGA took over that "Don't tread on me," that little snake.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I just saw it was a snake with Dr. Seuss's face, and it says "Don't read to me."
I haven't seen that one yet.
I thought it was really funny, but anyway.
Something.
Tara, we're gonna have to wrap it up here.
Just one more thing,
Yes.
and then we can wrap it up. You see how you mentioned about the Democrats and Republicans, and then on a local and state level, and then there's to vote in the primary and for the president. So can you let the audience know?
Yes.
If you want to make a difference within where you live, where should they really vote? Or is it the difference? I guess you said.
You got to vote for everything, and
right.
And a lot of times they'll come out for president, but they won't come out for local.
Right.
And your local school boards are the ones that can say we're banning those books, or the ones that say we're not teaching, about Black Wall Street, and we're not going to teach about Rosa Parks. So if you get the wrong school boards in there,
right,
look out. So it's important that you know who you're voting for. I won by 33 votes my first election in 2015. And then I won by 67% the second time and 70% and whatever. So every vote counts. You can make a difference. And all I'm saying to everybody is that when you're voting for a local person like a mayor, when you're voting for someone like me, you're voting for that person to make a vote that's something that you believe in. When you're voting for the president or a governor, you're voting in their beliefs and their ideals. But just know that they can't get those beliefs and ideals across that finish line unless they've got a House and a Senate that can help them do it. So the president doesn't have the power of anything. So when I vote for a president, whether it's Joe Biden, whether it was Bill Clinton, the reason I voted for them was not necessarily because of them as a person. It was the agenda they had to push forward to get rid of student loan debt, to make Medicare or drug prices lower for seniors, to be able to make college and universities affordable, to be able to, so all those things is what I vote for, because I know that's what they want to do, and they can't do it though unless I've got House and the Senate that can get it done.
That's the part I was talking
Yep.
about. So people understand it's not about just what the president, and you
Right.
elaborated on that very well.
Because Donald Trump, his Supreme Court right now, he got 3 of them in there,
Mhm.
overturned Roe v. Wade and a woman's right to her body. Actually, was it 3 or 4? Definitely 3. Kavanaugh.
I can't
Okay.
remember.
Anyway, it was enough to turn the court. So
Mhm.
that alone will tell you that it's a president's agenda. And had it have been Hillary or Bernie, whoever, not Trump, that court would have never,
Right.
those judges would have never been appointed
Right.
for life, their life, the Supreme Court,
Mhm.
which is ridiculous. And we would still have a right to our body.
It still happen to change back.
I don't
Okay, well,
see-
Tara, thank you for coming down to genesisradio.com. My name is Kendall. My co-host is Coco. And we're here for unity in the community, and we're here to empower the community with information.
Well, I thank you for having me. I'm sorry I talk a lot.
No,
and
you're good.
I had you down until 7, so I thought maybe otherwise I would have cut it. I would have.
Well, we actually had another person that was going to be here on the panel, and she wasn't able to make it.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it would have been a lot more Q&A.
That's all right. It was a good time. And anytime you want me here or have any questions, let me know. And again, I'm sorry if, maybe some of the things I talked about was like not something that anyone listening to wants
Oh
to hear.
no. What we
but I
talked
just-
about was perfectly fine.
I just
mean,
have to be honest. And,
Mhm.
and you can fault me for a lot of things, but you're never going to fault me for being honest.
Mhm. All right.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel.